Welcome to the Hollywood Scholar. I'm Jed Morgan, and I just finished The Last of Us Episode 4, Please Hold My Hand. And as much as that is a terrible name, my prediction made yesterday on the roundtable has been proved correct. As this is the best episode of The Last of Us so far, I'm incredibly confident in saying that. Now, I wouldn't go so far as to say it's good, but for the first time, I can completely understand why someone would call this episode good. There was a lot of positive things about it, and like I said around my episode 1 review, as soon as the characters aren't talking, it's an almost okay show. That is very evident in this episode, as a lot actually happens. Bloat is very much an issue with this episode as much as previous ones. It was a lot of unnecessary long takes of stuff that we didn't need to know. Like the first 5 minutes is just Bella Ramsey's Ellie playing with her gun for longer than is necessary. It seems as if the actors were once again told to take as long as possible to say or do anything. So bloat is 100% still a major concern of this episode, and it isn't much better in this one compared to the predecessors. But there is still some positive things hidden inside of the bloat, and some actual glimmers of Joel and Ellie and The Last of Us in it. This is the first time where I thought, hey, I can see that this is an adaptation of The Last of Us. It's the first time I thought that while watching it. Now, again, I wouldn't say it was good, especially because of some of the other stuff surrounding the villains of the episode. Most of that was really bad. But there were moments of Joel and Ellie breathing out, and moments of decent action that far surpassed the previous episodes, to the point where I wasn't dissatisfied when I finished the episode. I didn't hate it. And that's the first time I'm willing to say that, or capable of saying that, for this show. Now, do I think this will be an overall change for the series going forward? No. Broken clock can hit right twice a day. It happens. It does happen. This one was all right. It was almost all right, and I enjoyed myself for part of it. Before I get any further, there will be spoilers ahead, so spoiler alert. Now, the major change that people are talking about when surrounding this episode is the fact that it takes place in Kansas City rather than Pittsburgh, and the development of the villains. Now, with the Kansas City change, not much of a big deal. They literally mention it twice, I think, and you could just change that out for Pittsburgh and it really wouldn't change anything. I don't know why they chose Kansas City, but it doesn't affect the story, so whatever. It really doesn't matter. Now, the development of the villains is the bigger issue because, yeah, it'd be interesting to learn more about the resistance in Pittsburgh, or Kansas City in this case, and see why they're doing what they're doing, get a little bit more about them. And that is a cool concept that a longer runtime can provide a story. So expanding on the lore isn't necessarily a bad thing. Contradicting it or changing it is, but this is 100% just expanding on it. And it wasn't good. It really wasn't, specifically because of the main villain. Now, this episode, it still covers Joel and Ellie. They're driving into the city. They're attacked by some hunters. They manage to fight them off, escape, but the truck is damaged, so they're stuck in this city trying to find their way out of it while these hunters chase them down. On paper, same plot in this episode, but the hunters are developed to a much further degree in some very strange ways. Specifically, the fact that Henry, who is one of the brothers that you meet along the story in the game for a brief portion, and for some reason, he's the ultimate bad guy to these resistance hunters. It's a very strange choice, and you'd have to change a lot about his character to justify making him the face of the resistance or the ultimate bad guy for these people, especially after they beat Fedra. They haven't justified it to any extent, and in the games, Sam and Henry were just two random brothers that you came across by happenstance who were in a very similar situation, so you decide to help each other out. He's not important. The Sam's not important. It's just, hey, we're in a sucky situation. Let's help each other out. And that can justify the coincidences. Hey, it just happened to be these people. That's okay. But now that he's the ultimate villain to these people, the fact that Joel and Ellie come across them, Sam and Henry, in this giant city as the hunters chase down all four of them, is incredibly coincidental and contrived to such a degree that they really need to work hard to justify in episode 5, because we barely meet Sam and Henry at the very end of this episode. They're going to have to really justify it, and I just don't think that they're going to do that. They're going to be like, no, they just happen to go exactly 33 floors up the exact same skyscraper at the exact same time while getting hunted by the same people. That is just too many coincidences to be believable, but that is a problem for the next episode. It's just, for this one, why is Kathleen the leader of the hunters after Henry? It just seems like a weird deal, and they haven't explained it yet, but they're going to have to make a lot of changes to Henry going forward if they're going to justify that. But the bigger problem with all the hunters is Kathleen as their leader. She's just not good, to put it simply. One of the basic precepts of leadership is confidence, and she possesses no confidence whatsoever. When she finds out that those hunter boys are killed by Joel and Ellie. She's like, oh, but what if it was Henry? Do you think it was Henry? Oh, and yes, of course she should be upset in a situation like that, but she's just mumbling, asking questions to this random guy who apparently is her number 2, who was good. I like him, but she and her mousy voice really doesn't help things. She's not intimidating and she has zero confidence, so she doesn't come across as a good logical leader, and so it breaks the hunters as a group. Her character development is really bad, and it's just not enough to justify everything that's going on. So as much as they are expanding the lore in an interesting way, they're doing it in a bad way, which is ultimately a detriment to the episode. If it weren't for that character development, with her making her the ultimate villain of this section, if it was just the Joel and Ellie sequences, I would actually rate this as a positive episode. I would give this like a 6 or 7 out of 10 if it weren't for the hunter's involvement and her involvement specifically. But because of what they did to Henry, because of everything to do with her, it doesn't achieve that high of a mark. Besides that, there are a few contrived things that do damage to the Joel and Ellie portions of it. Specifically, Bella Ramsey is still not a good actress. Even when she's delivering lines straight from the games, it comes off as cheap and cheesy, like the interaction from the video game where she finds Bill porn magazine. She's just not acting very well, and so she comes across as incredibly distracting, so that's still an issue. During the fight with the hunters initially, there's this random hole in the wall that's perfectly her size that Joel has her climb into. It's kind of weird, contrived, but not necessarily a super big deal. And the glass trap that Joel constructs around their beds at the end of the episode doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Yes, a glass trap or a sound trap is a good idea in a situation like that, but putting it outside the door would make more sense, because as soon as they're within 2 feet of Joel's bed, it's kind of too late to really do a whole lot. And so putting the glass there doesn't necessarily work from a strategic value and doesn't help your situation at all if someone does walk across that glass. Kind of a weird issue, not overall detriment. If those were the only issues with the episode, I would rate this pretty high, but that's not the case, specifically with the hunters and everything else that they changed from the game. Just overall, even the good parts, the game did it better, especially the dialogue. The dialogue was really weak in this episode. Once again, when the actors aren't talking, it's almost okay. Still very much the case here because the dialogue is very weak. But there are moments when Joel and Ellie come out during the action sequences. This episode was previously marketed as one of the most action-heavy of the season, and that worries me because there was only really 1 or 2 real action sequences of the episode. They were good, but they were very short, and with the bloat being the rest of the episode, that is a problem. That is a major problem, but the action was decent enough. It was okay. And during those sequences, Joel took charge, and I loved seeing Joel finally take charge. It looked like Joel for a few moments there, and I love that. Specifically, when they get into that initial fight, Ellie has to save Joel from one of the hunters. Like it happened in the game, they moved it from a new location, but whatever, narratively, it is still the same scene where she has to save Joel from a hunter. She shoots him with her gun, and Joel has to, take the gun away and make his decision whether or not he'll let her keep it. Narratively, very similar, and accomplishes a lot of the same things. It would have helped it was delivered by more competent actors, but it still worked as a scene, and I enjoyed it. And I really enjoyed the change that they made. And yes, I do enjoy some changes made to the source material. They changed it where the man survived Ellie's initial shot. So he had to beg for his life to Ellie, and Ellie has to see him begging. That is a lot more damaging to a young psyche than just killing someone. You shoot someone and then watch them beg. That is a lot more damaging and more right for development as a character. And then Joel executes the man. That is Joel. That is Joel with a spine, with some balls. That interaction was great, especially because the hunter was giving a really good performance. He's one of the best actors that I've seen in the show so far. That hunter, as he was begging for his life, was done incredibly well. I really enjoyed that scene, that fight sequences. Pretty much as soon as they stop talking in the truck to after Joel executes that hunter, it's really good. It's really good. Before that, it's a bunch of bad dialogue and overlong takes with Ellie stroking her gun for way longer than needs to be. But as soon as they stop talking, they come to this overpass that's stuff with cars. They justify why they need to go into the city, which they didn't do in episode 2. They didn't justify why they had to get themselves in this building. Everything was justified in a logical manner, the decisions that Joel and Ellie were making. It is possible for them to write good. And that's what sucks is, yes, this is a glimmer of a good episode in an otherwise crap TV show. I don't think it's going to be much better going forward. I think this might be the best we get because they are capable of it, but for 3 previous episodes, they specifically chose not to do good writing. And so that overall actually creates a detriment for the season as a whole to show and prove that they are capable of doing a good job. Now, the rest of the episode, a lot of it's just kind of walking slowly, talking a little bit, not really saying anything, and that's really boring, and that's where a lot of the bloat comes in. One interaction that I also did like is when Joel ends up giving Ellie back her gun and shows her how to use it. That was a good interaction. Pedro Pascal actually acted in that scene. Bella Ramsey was listening to him, having that dynamic of Joel and Ellie. He's the boss, I listen to him. And it was decently well done. Again, better actors would have done a better job. The games did it 100 times better, but it was still a positive scene. And even at the very end of the episode, it closes out with them going to sleep, and Ellie tells him the hereditary diarrhea joke, and they both laugh. And I finally saw they like each other. They're both human beings. That's the first time I saw that in this entire show. I don't know if this is going to be the only time I say that, but they felt like real people for the very first time, let alone Joel and Ellie. They just felt like real human beings for a brief moment. Overall, there are still a lot of issues with this episode, especially with contrivances, coincidences, poor villains, poor dialogue, but there were moments of quality hidden in it, and a brief moment of action that was good and actually logical compared to the action sequences of the previous episodes. Who knows if they'll be able to justify the changes made to Henry's character and the expansion of the Hunter villain character in the next episode, because it seems to be a two-parter type deal. Who knows if they'll be able to pull it off, but so far in this one, they did an okay job. Overall, I give this episode a 5 out of 10, and I could hear an argument to give it up to a 6. I never thought after those first initial episodes that I would give an episode anywhere near as high of a rating as this one. But there were moments that were good, and the rest of it was mostly okay, and only a very few things could I quantify as actually bad. For the very first time, I can see why people like this show. This is an episode where I won't blame anyone for enjoying this. I can understand why you like it for the very first time. But the first 3, I really can't comprehend why someone would enjoy that crap. But for this one, I can see it. And there is good to be had in it. And I didn't think I'd be saying that. So overall, the terrible name aside, this was a decent episode of television. And if the entire season was like this, relatively faithful to the source material, mainly only expanding upon it more than contradicting it, this would have actually been a good season of television. This would have been a good adaptation. So far, that isn't the case. I can say without any issues, this episode in isolation was okay, almost good. But anyway, that's all I have for today. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Anon.
Hey, yo, are you feeling what I'm doing up in here? Oh, I know you are. Do you miss all the good, compelling stories that we used to get back in Hollywood that they ain't putting down no more? Oh, I know you missing it. So check out my book series, Odyssey of a Phoenix, a mythological epic about philosophy, morality, and modern-day mental illness issues, baby. Book 1, Down in Flames. Book 2, Apocalypse Then. These are currently on sale. What are you waiting for? Get your hands on them. And we got book 3, Kill the Dark, is coming down the pipeline. Just wait for all the good stuff that's dropping. You ain't gonna be disappointed, fam.